The engine purred gently under him as Michael B. Jordan adjusted the volume on the stereo. The soft rhythm of jazz humming through the speakers, while the streets of downtown Los Angeles blurred by under the setting sun. He wasn't in a rush, not today, just taking the long way back from a quiet meeting, enjoying the rare moment of peace away from cameras, obligations, red carpets, and scripts. The world felt quieter from inside his matte black SUV, tinted windows wrapping him in a safe bubble, but as he slowed at a red light and looked to his right, that bubble cracked. There he stood. A man older, wrapped in layers of mismatched, tattered clothing, his face worn like leather, eyes sunken but still alert, holding a cardboard sign that read in shaky marker, "Just hungry. Anything helps." He wasn't yelling. He wasn't approaching cars. He just stood still, like a statue carved out of pain and dignity, clutching his sign like a flag of surrender. Michael blinked. Something twisted in his chest. Something more than pity. It was recognition, not of the man, but of that look, the same look he'd seen in characters he'd played, in stories that had moved millions. But now it wasn't fiction, and it wasn't on a screen. It was real, right there on the corner of 8th and Hill, staring back at him through grime and exhaustion. The light turned green. Cars began to move. But Michael didn't. He stayed parked, cars honking behind him as they swerved around, annoyed. He didn't care. His fingers tapped the steering wheel once, twice, before he sighed, hit the hazard lights, and pulled over to the curb. The man didn't flinch. He just watched him, cautious. Michael stepped out. The city air was cooler than he expected, carrying the smell of street food, car exhaust, and something else, desperation. "Yo," Michael said, keeping his voice low, hands open. "You good, man?" The man blinked at him, confused, not recognizing him, not as a celebrity anyway. "Ain't nobody asked me that in months," he said hoarsely, his voice cracking like dry leaves. "I'm surviving." Michael nodded slowly. "What's your name?" "Daryl." "You hungry, Daryl?" "Yeah," he said with no shame, only weariness. "Been 2 days. I had some crackers I found in a trash bag, but they had ants." Michael ran a hand over his beard, glanced at his car, then back at Daryl. "You want a ride?" Daryl took a step back, eyes narrowing. "You a cop?" Michael chuckled softly. "Nah, man. I'm just a dude with a car. Let me take you somewhere. Get some food. You trust me." There was a long silence. Daryl looked down at his feet, his worn boots with the soles peeling off, then back at Michael. "Ain't nobody ever offered me a ride before." "Then let this be the first," Michael said, stepping to the side, gesturing to the SUV. "Come on, let's fix that." Daryl hesitated a beat longer, then slowly moved forward. The door opened, and as he climbed in, he paused, looking around like he had just entered another world. "Damn," he whispered. "Smells like leather and money in here." Michael grinned as he got in, started the car, and merged into traffic. "Let's get you a hot meal first. Then we'll talk about what's next." Daryl didn't respond right away. He was busy staring out the window, as if the city had shifted while he was outside of it, like it had become something foreign. But then he looked over at Michael and said, "You really doing this for no reason?" Michael glanced at him, serious. "There's always a reason. You just don't always see it right away." Daryl nodded slowly. "You got a kind face, and kind faces don't survive long out here. You sure you ain't crazy?" Michael laughed. "Maybe a little, but I'm also stubborn. And I got a feeling you deserve better than this corner." "Yeah," Daryl said, more curious now than defensive. "Why?" Michael turned the wheel smoothly, eyes locked ahead. "Because nobody ends up out here without a story. And I think yours ain't done yet." Daryl looked at him long and hard. Then, after a breath, he said, "You might be right. But it's a hell of a thing to say to a stranger." "We all strangers," Michael replied, "until we're not." The rest of the drive was quiet, but not awkward. It was the kind of silence where something was growing in the space between words, trust, maybe, or understanding. And for the first time in a long time, Daryl felt warm, not from the heated seats, but from the fact that someone had looked at him, really looked, and hadn't turned away. Michael didn't know it yet, but this wasn't just a pit stop in his day. This was the start of something that would ripple far beyond a hot meal. He just had a hunch, deep down, that this man was more than what the world had made of him. And he was right, but not even Michael could guess just how far this small act would go. Michael parked the car just around the corner and stepped out, leaving the door open in case Daryl had a change of heart. But before he even made it around the front of the SUV, the man was already standing there, looking unsure but willing, like someone who had nothing left to lose and maybe something to gain for once. Michael walked up slowly, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the wear on Daryl's coat, the holes in his gloves, the dirt layered in creases of his face that no longer looked like a choice, but like a second skin. "What are you doing out here, man?" he asked gently, his voice low, not demanding, just curious, human. Daryl blinked at him, lips pressed tight for a second before answering. "Ain't got nowhere else to be," he said finally. "Ain't got nothing left. Truth be told. Lost the job. Lost the place, lost. Just about everything. Been out here 6 months now. City's cold when you got nowhere to go. And people, they look right through you, like you already dead." Michael's jaw tightened slightly. He didn't flinch at the words, but they hit something in him. Maybe a memory, maybe just guilt. "You been like this long?" he asked. Daryl shrugged. "Long enough to forget what warm water feels like." Michael studied him for a moment, then said, "All right, let's change that." Daryl squinted at him, not understanding. "What?" "You heard me. Come on. I'm taking you to get some clean clothes, some food, and we'll find a place where you can shower. Not gonna let you freeze out here tonight." Daryl took a step back, eyes wide. "Why would you do that? You don't even know me." Michael shrugged. "Don't need to. I just know nobody should have to live like this. And I can do something about it. So I will." Daryl stared for a long time, trying to find the catch, trying to sniff out the trick, the con, the lie, but there wasn't one. Just a guy with kind eyes and too much heart. "All right," he said cautiously, "but I ain't got no diseases or nothing. I just fell apart, that's all. I'm not worried," Michael said with a small smile. "Come on, let's get you sorted out." They got back in the car, and as they drove, Daryl kept looking around like he didn't belong in something so clean, like the seat would reject him. "This ride's nicer than any hotel I ever been in," he mumbled. Michael chuckled. "You like the store I'm taking you to, then? We'll get you something warm. Real warm. And something that fits." They pulled into a shopping center not far from Wilshire, somewhere discreet, not flashy. Michael didn't want to make a show of this. It wasn't about that. Inside, they hit the men's section first, grabbing some jeans, a few shirts, thick hoodies, new boots, socks, underwear, everything a man needed to not feel invisible. Daryl held one of the jackets like it was a relic. "This too much, man," he said quietly. "I can't let you do all this." "You're letting me," Michael replied, tossing another flannel into the cart. "So it's already done." Daryl shook his head, overwhelmed. "People don't do stuff like this. Not for folks like me." "Maybe they should start," Michael said. "Now, come on. We still gotta get to the food aisle." When they got there, Daryl's hands hovered over things like he didn't know what to take, like it was all too good to touch. Michael grabbed a basket and just started loading up, Granola bars, instant oatmeal, canned beans, peanut butter, bread, fruit, bottles of water, snacks, things that would keep if needed. Daryl followed him in silence, until finally whispering, "You ever been hungry?" Michael glanced at him. "Yeah, different kind, maybe, but yeah." "Then you get it," Daryl said. "Hunger don't just live in your stomach. It crawls into your brain, makes you feel like less than human." Michael stopped pushing the cart. "Not today. Today you eat like you matter." They checked out, Michael swiping his card without a second thought. The cashier looked at Daryl like he was invisible until she saw Michael, then suddenly became all smiles and charm, but he didn't respond. He wasn't here to be seen. Outside, they loaded the bags into the back. "Now," Michael said, "we're gonna hit up a spot where you can get a proper shower. There's a church nearby that runs this thing. They'll let you clean up, no questions asked." Daryl's eyes got glassy. "You serious?" "Yeah, man. I know the guy who runs it. We'll get you in." The church wasn't far. It was quiet when they arrived. A back entrance opened by an old volunteer who greeted Michael with a smile and didn't ask why he was bringing someone in. "I'll give you some privacy," Michael said, handing Daryl a duffel with the new clothes. "Take your time." Daryl stood there, gripping the bag like it was gold. "I don't know what to say, man." "You don't gotta say anything. Just go feel human again." Daryl nodded once, hard, then disappeared inside. While he showered, Michael waited in the car, scrolling through his phone, but not really reading anything, just thinking about how easy it was to pass people by, about how little it took to actually stop. When Daryl came out, hair still damp, face clean, beard trimmed by a volunteer, and clothes fresh and fitting, he looked like a different man. Still tired, still scarred, but different. "I ain't looked in a mirror in months," he said quietly as he slid into the passenger seat. "Almost forgot my own face. You remember now?" Michael asked. Daryl nodded. "I think I'm starting to." They drove without talking for a bit. The city outside didn't change, but for Daryl, everything felt different. And though he couldn't put words to it yet, he knew something had shifted. He just didn't know that this was only the beginning. And neither did Michael. After the shower, the clean clothes, and the warmth of something as simple as being acknowledged, they sat in the car for a few minutes without saying much, just letting the silence be something soft instead of something empty. The bags of food sat in the back, the scent of something packaged, but promising, filling the air, and Michael glanced over at Daryl, who looked less like a stranger now and more like someone who had been waiting his whole life to finally be seen. "So," Michael said, his voice casual but deliberate, "where are you staying tonight?" Daryl gave a short laugh that had no humor in it. "Nowhere, man. Back to the same sidewalk I was on this morning. Got a little spot near a loading dock where the wind don't hit too hard. Sometimes the rats leave you alone if you don't move much." Michael shook his head slowly, not with judgment, just disbelief that this kind of reality still existed in a city dripping with wealth and glamour. "Nah," he said after a moment. "That's not happening tonight. Or tomorrow night. Or the night after that." Daryl looked at him, confused. "What you talking about?" Michael tapped a quick message into his phone, then turned the key in the ignition. "I got a friend. Runs a camp, but not the kind where people forget about you. It's a safe place. Real beds. Showers. Meals. Programs if you want them. It's not perfect, but it's better than a sidewalk with rats." Daryl blinked. "You serious?" "Dead serious. I'm not just gonna clean you up and drop you off like this was a feel-good movie moment. That's not how this works. You deserve more than one good night. Let's build a few in a row. What do you say?" Daryl was quiet, but Michael could see it in his face, the disbelief, the cautious hope. The part of him screaming it was too good to be true, fighting the part that desperately wanted it to be. "All right," he said at last. "I'll go. I mean, what I got to lose?" Michael nodded and smiled. That's the spirit. The drive wasn't long. Just outside the main city center, tucked behind a row of industrial buildings, a place most folks wouldn't even notice unless they knew to look. The camp wasn't fancy, trailers converted into rooms, some modular buildings, a few tents for overflow, but it was organized, clean, and full of people who greeted Daryl with tired smiles and nods that said they understood. Michael helped carry the bags in, introduced Daryl to one of the staffers named Nina, who took him in like a brother. They set him up with a private bunk, gave him a fresh blanket, explained how meals worked, the rotation for chores, the optional group sessions. Daryl looked overwhelmed, but not scared. For once, he wasn't being told to leave, he was being invited to stay. That night, Michael stopped by with a bag of takeout, fried chicken, mac and cheese, cornbread, and a big sweet tea. "Ain't no welcome without good food," he said, handing it over. Daryl laughed, a real one this time, and tore into the meal like a man who'd just remembered what comfort felt like. Over the next few weeks, Michael came by whenever he could, sometimes with food, sometimes with books, sometimes just to talk. Daryl began to soften, to settle. He helped out around the camp, mopped floors, passed out trays at mealtime, started sitting in on the morning check-ins. He stopped looking down all the time. He even started cracking jokes. One evening, as they sat outside on an old bench, Daryl turned to Michael and said, "You know, I thought you were just feeling sorry for me. But now I think maybe you were just seeing something I forgot was there." Michael nodded. "Nah, I just met you at halftime, man. Game wasn't over." The months passed. Life got busier for Michael, movies, interviews, travel, but he always made time to check in. If he couldn't visit, he'd send food or ask Nina for updates. Daryl stayed put, worked on himself. He took a part-time job at a warehouse nearby, then picked up more shifts, saved every dollar, cut back on cigarettes, started talking about goals, not just days. He became a regular fixture at the camp, someone new arrivals looked to for advice. Then one day, Michael got caught up in a whirlwind of back-to-back projects, film shoots overseas, a press tour, promotional events. 6 months flew by faster than he realized, and the guilt hit him hard when he noticed how long it had been since he'd last seen Daryl. On a warm Friday afternoon, he cleared his schedule for a few hours and drove straight to the camp. It looked the same trailers, same tents, same Nina out front with a clipboard. He parked, stepped out, and walked over. She spotted him instantly and smiled. "Look what the wind dragged in," she teased. "Thought you forgot about us." "Never," he said, hugging her. "Just caught up in the circus. Is Daryl around?" Nina's smile softened, turned into something almost proud. "Not anymore." Michael blinked. "What? Where'd he go?" "Something happened." She shook her head. "Something good happened. Man worked his butt off, saved every penny. Got himself a job downtown, full-time. Real steady gig. After a while, he moved into a studio apartment. Month later, he came back and showed us the keys to a used car he bought. Said it ain't much, but it runs and it's his. He don't live here no more." Michael stood there in stunned silence, then slowly let out a long breath, a smile growing on his face. "You serious?" "Dead serious," Nina said. "He's thriving. Last time he was here, he asked about you. Said to tell you thank you for the second chance. And for the chicken." Michael laughed, a deep, full laugh that echoed across the lot. His eyes stung a little, but he didn't wipe them. "Damn," he said. "He really did it." Yeah, Nina said, putting a hand on his shoulder. But you lit the match. Don't forget that. As Michael walked back to his car, he looked around the camp, remembering that first night, that cold stare through the window, the disbelief in Daryl's voice. And now, somewhere out there, he was living, not just surviving. A man who'd once been forgotten had found his way back. Michael sat in the driver's seat for a while, before starting the engine, just staring ahead and smiling. There were thousands of others still out there. But one life had changed. One story had turned. And sometimes that was enough to keep going. Sometimes that was everything.